Breaking news now. Volodymyr Zelenskyy, President of Ukraine, will travel to Canada. Canada will host Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy on September 21 and 22, 2023, as announced by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau today. To help the Ukrainian people continue to defend themselves against Russia's brutal and unjustified invasion, the two leaders will continue to work closely together to strengthen ties between our countries. As long as Ukraine needs support, Canada will provide it. Trudeau will meet with Zelenskyy in Ottawa to restate Canada's commitment to Ukraine's defense against Russia's brutal war of aggression on all fronts: military, economic, humanitarian, and development. In order to further fortify the economic ties between our countries, they will take part in a signing ceremony. Parliament will hear from President Zelenskyy while he is in Ottawa. After that, the leaders will visit Toronto to discuss boosting private sector investment in Ukraine's future with Canadian business leaders. The event will bring together Canadians of all backgrounds, including members of the Ukrainian community, and the Prime Minister and President. For as long as it takes, Canada and its allies and partners will stand in solidarity with the people of Ukraine. Together, we will increase economic pressure on Putin's regime, targeting sectors that are strategically important for Russia, like oil and gas, until it respects Ukraine's territorial integrity and sovereignty. As long as the Ukrainian people fight for their independence, democracy, and freedom, Canada will be by their side. Quote, "The Ukrainian people are the spearhead that is deciding the future of the 21st century," I said in a June speech to the Ukrainian parliament. Canada's support for the Ukrainian people in their fight for independence and democracy, as well as for other values like rule of law, freedom, and self-determination, has not wavered. In light of Russia's brutal war of aggression, I am looking forward to welcoming President Zelenskyy to Canada to further strengthen our support for Ukraine and the Ukrainian people. Canada's Prime Minister, the Right Honourable Justin Trudeau, Fast Facts. Olena Zelenska, the President of Ukraine's spouse, will join him. Canada has provided Ukraine with over $8.9 billion in aid since January 2022. This includes over $4.95 billion in direct financial aid and over $1.8 billion in military aid, which has included everything from Leopard 2 tanks and air defense and artillery systems to armored vehicles and ammunition. To assist with this year's budget, the government of Ukraine received a $2.4 billion loan from Budget 2023. When compared to the other G7 countries, Canada's direct financial aid to Ukraine is by far the highest per capita. Canada is helping Ukraine's armed forces in a broader sense, and is also supporting Ukraine's NATO allies. The Canadian Armed Forces, CAF, now has more time to respond to Ukraine's urgent training needs, as we have extended Operation Unifier until 2026. As part of the largest reinforcement of Alliance collective defence in a generation, we have also renewed and expanded Operation Reassurance, Canada's largest overseas mission, through which the CAF contributes to NATO's deterrence and defence measures in Central and Eastern Europe. Over £12 million worth of military donations have been transported by the CAF since March 2022, when they began assisting with the delivery of aid for Ukraine from Canada and on behalf of our allies and partners. A National Advanced Surface-to-Air Missile System, NASAMS, with associated munitions, 39 armored combat support vehicles, anti-tank weapons, small arms, M777 howitzers and associated ammunition, high-resolution drone cameras, satellite communications equipment, and more are all part of Canada's military aid to Ukraine. Canada and several other allies have agreed to form a coalition to teach Ukrainian pilots and mechanics how to handle F-16s. Operation Unifier was first announced in 2015 and has now been extended to the year 2026. More than 38,000 Ukrainian military and security personnel have been trained by the CAF in battlefield tactics and advanced military skills since the operation began. In response to the humanitarian consequences of Russia's invasion of Ukraine and its neighbors, Canada has pledged $352.5 million in humanitarian aid since January 2022. More than 175,000 Ukrainians have fled to Canada since Russia's brutal invasion of Ukraine began. Canada is assisting Ukrainian families in relocating to safe, temporary housing in Canada, and has set up post-arrival support services to help them adjust to life in Canada. This consists of both short-term financial aid and entry to federally funded settlement services like language classes and help finding a job. In addition to the $105 million in security and stabilization assistance, Canada has pledged $147 million in development assistance to Ukraine to address emerging priorities like mental health care, landmine removal, and climate change adaptation. There was a 19% increase from the previous year in the value of Canadian merchandise imports from Ukraine, totaling $271.2 million, and in the amount of Canadian merchandise exported to Ukraine, $150.2 million. A joint declaration on the conclusion of negotiations for the modernization of the Canada-Ukraine Free Trade Agreement was signed by Prime Ministers Trudeau and Denis Shmyhal in April 2023. Canada has sanctioned over 2,600 individuals and organizations in response to Russia's illegal occupation and attempted annexation of Crimea in 2014. Canada's allies and partners have worked together to implement many of these sanctions.